So welcome everyone. This is our monthly DNA Decoded Genetics Program coaching call. And I'm super excited that you're all here. I'm curious to hear your questions and your feedback thus far. I want to briefly introduce Dr. Sam. I know most of you know him already, but for those of you who don't know him, he is an incredible functional medicine doctor, and he brings a unique blend of his own personal experience through struggles with health, as well as 20 years of experience, and he also adds a lot of humor, which makes it really fun to work with him. My name is Crystal. I've been a holistic health coach for about 10 years now. I'm a homesteader and I am a retired military spouse. And we have a little homestead here in Connecticut. So I have a bunch of chickens and we're getting sheep in the spring. And I love what I do here with Dr. Sam as well. So my life is very full and wonderful. So today we're going to be talking about weight loss. And even if this doesn't specifically apply to you, I think it'll be interesting to hear all of the different ways that genetics impacts weight. And so, Dr. Sam, I'd love for you to explain the differences between the types of weight, because I think a lot of people think more in terms of just calories and fat, but there are so many different ways to gain weight. So, can you explain more about that?
Sure. So there's three main types. There's inflammatory water weight, hormonal toxic weight, and caloric fat weight. So there's most people think that weight is the last category, caloric fat weight, where you eat calories and then you put on weight, this white textured tissue in the body. But what I've seen is that the vast majority of weight that p most people carry uh, is inflammatory water weight. And what happens is that when people are inflamed, the purpose of inflammation is to try to uh, deal with an urgent injury or with a potential infection, or to try to flush out to move toxic things out of there. Like if I'm a hunter gatherer and a animal bites my arm becomes inflamed because there's damage from the bite, and there's also pathogens and toxins that are introduced into the tissues from the bite. So inflammation will bring in red blood cells to repair and white blood cells to get rid of any potential infections. So inflammation is not inherently bad, no different than the stress hormone cortisol is inherently bad. It's just if it's overused or chronically on, or it's overreactive, and acts in a way that's not proportionate to the issue, to what was causing it. So what happens is that people have genetically multiple reasons why that they may be prone to putting on more inflammatory weight. So, for example, some people have just way more pro-inflammatory genes that are switched on. So there's about 15 or so major pro-inflammatory genes. These are the ones that control the dozens and hundreds of genes underneath them. And if people have too many of these 15 or so major pro-inflammatory genes, then they're what I call hyper-inflammers, meaning that they have an overreactive response to inflammation. So any source of inflammation will potentially bring in water weight. And the reason why is because inflammatory chemicals, though they are there for the short term to rush in, red blood cells and white blood cells to deal with an urgent issue, those inflammatory chemicals are damaging over time or in enough quantity. So the body then has to flood the area with water to dilute the inflammatory chemicals from further damaging the body. So when people are inflamed, you see they start to swell up. And you see this with people can get overinflamed and put on water from any number of reasons. So when you've got people have there's this hyperinflammatory, so that most any type of inflammatory response will trigger this water weight, that water rushes in to dilute the inflammatory chemicals. Is there anyone that doesn't this mechanism is real key to understanding what will then cause and contribute to inflammation genetically going on? So is there anyone have any questions about how inflammation as a whole will rush in water weight to dilute the dangerous inflammatory chemicals from damaging nerves, tissues, cells, blood vessels, etc.? Does anyone have any questions on that mechanism? Because that's the key to understanding the rest of it.
Well, my question is, how do I know that it's inflammatory weight versus caloric fat weight?
So if one easy way to know if it's inflammatory weight is if your weight yo-yos rapidly day to day. So people can raise and drop water weight quite rapidly. In fact, there's a term I developed called the muffin test. And the muffin test is if you eat uh a crappy muffin, just some generic. Oh, great. As if you see what happens is that the muffin, people can put on 1 to 3 pounds or 2 to 4 pounds in a day, and their weight can fluctuate by 1 to 2 pounds, 1 to 4 pounds, 1 to 5 pounds in a given day. That's a real sign that one's dealing with inflammatory water weight. So if you eat half a muffin and you like put on 3 pounds that day, uh, unless that muffin was last year's regifted Christmas fruitcake, it didn't weigh 3 pounds. So how did your body put on 3 pounds from half a muffin? It's because of all the plastics that leached in from the little wrapper dew. That's around the base, from the gluten in the wheat, from the dough conditioning and rising chemicals that are in it, to the sugar that's inflammatory, to the colors, to the preservatives, to whatever junk oils that are highly inflammatory, like seed oils that are very fragile and they're overheated and treated in the manufacture. I'm not even say cooking process of the muffin. I say the manufacturing of the muffin. Um, all those things individually are inflammatory, but in aggregate are just super inflammatory. And then a if you've got the genes that make you extra reactive to inflammation, then that half a muffin will just trigger your body to retain, 1, 2, 3, 4 or more pounds of water weight. Now, that's what I call the muffin test. The other test is that people, you see this in the CrossFit community, people, the more they exercise, the fatter they get. Which is, if you want to talk about demoralizing, let's talk about that. And you see this in the CrossFit community where you can walk into any CrossFit gym, like literally any of them, and just look around. And you'll see there's a section of the population that goes there like every day, and they look cut and fit. And then you got another section of the CrossFit population that looks washed out. Like they're strong, but you can't see the definition of their muscles. Their skin's like ruddy and red, and like they've got this kind of layer of water weight that's hiding their muscle tone. Those are the people that are hyper-inflaming, and they're over-exercising. And exercise should be net anti-inflammatory, but there's some invisible line that's genetically based in several other factors that they cross it, then suddenly exercise becomes pro-inflammatory. And uh, and these are the people that they would know that they're hyper-inflammatory, that if they had to stop exercising for like a week, for whatever situation or circumstance, like the gym was closed, they were traveling, family was in town, whatever. Um, and then they go back to the gym a week later and they look better, they feel better, they can see their muscle tone better, and they're stronger when they took the week off. They're stronger. Now, this has happened multiple times in my practice. I've had to confront several people that, based on their genetics and their lifestyle and how they look, I was like, I think you're over exercising. And I've had many debates. And then basically one person was through circumstance, the other was like, I said, just try it, just 1 week. You'll survive without a week. And they sheepishly all reported back that they looked better, felt better, and were stronger a week later when they finally took a week off from over exercising. So these are uh, these are people. The other thing is that people feel more tired 90 minutes after they exercise. They're just exhausting themselves. So I'll give you another example. My father, uh, he he's been the most difficult person I've ever had to work with in terms of health. He has two doctorates that he dual wields like samurai swords to intellectually cut down anyone who tells him to do something that interferes with his precious lifestyle that is counterproductive to his health, but he enjoys the comfort and convenience of. Uh, so we would dual samurai sword in hand. I finally was able to convince him to stop for 1 day and 1 day only. High gluten toasted bread and toasted cheese that he would have once, twice a day, plus a bunch of other food that was not that was definitely pro-inflammatory. And I said, for 1 day, I want you to have all the chicken breast, coconut oil, broccoli, salt, pepper, and he wouldn't get off coffee. That would never happen. And he's continued to have coffee, have as much of the calories as you want, but just none of the other pro-inflammatory stuff. And he agreed for 1 day. And he weighs himself every morning. He's done so for decades. He weighed himself the morning before he ate anything. During the day, I watched him eat. So he didn't starve himself. He ate. He absolutely ate, and he didn't exercise. So that's important because he didn't cut calories and he didn't burn calories that day. All he did was change to foods that were not pro-inflammatory. The very next morning, he reported he lost 4 pounds in 1 day just from changing his diet. No exercise, no calorie restriction. So that is the clearest example of someone who's a hyperinflamer, which makes total sense because my genes, I have of the 15 major pro-inflammatory genes, out of the 15, I have 13 that are hyperinflammatory, and I inherited half of those from my father. So it would make sense that he's also hyperinflammatory prone genetically, even though I haven't run his genetics. So, does that answer did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the connection of inflammation and water weight?
I have a
I
question, Doctor.
have,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry. No, I said I was just trying to find, I'm pretty sure I remember that I am a hyperinflamer and I've bought many books on anti-inflammatory diet just because I know I have high inflammation, but I can't figure out where it is in my report. I feel like I'm not looking at the right thing. I have the genetic summary action report and then that carb one that was done in
Mhm.
Australia. Which one shows like the inflammation susceptibility, I guess?
It's the genetics blueprint, and what you'd be looking at, Anne, is the list of if you go to the table of contents, there's one there that says inflammation.
Right.
And there's yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you just it's right there. Yeah, click on inflammation. Uh, and if you scroll down, this is a sample report. Scroll down. So this would be page 57 approximately, depending on what version of the report you got, would show the global trend if someone is hyperinflammatory. So this person is 11 out of
Okay.
15. And then inflammation breaks up into three separate pieces. how well you initiate. If you can scroll back up a little bit, Crystal. Thank you. So how pro-inflammatory to initiate inflammation, like how fast does it spark up? The second is propagation of inflammation, which is the bright does it rage? And uh, then the last one is extinguishing. It's like how easily do you put out the inflammation? So, and then if you want to see the actual names of the specific genes, that's on page 58. That it's my job to be more on a first name basis with these genes, not yours. That's why I made page 57 above it that more easily breaks down what's actually
Right.
going on. And then practic in terms of practically what to do, we have at the very if we scroll down to just keep going, Crystal, down to the keep going down to the summary grid. I believe it's page 75 or so. There you go, 82. Okay, so this is the long version of the recommendation grid, but the one page summary, I believe, is slide 6, the one that shows like here's your diet, here's the top 5 supplements, here's your exercise. You know what I'm referring to, Ann?
I do. I do. I
Oh,
remember that one.
okay. That slide. So this is the more detailed version of what people need to do to address the most important genes as it relates to inflammation and free radicals and liver detox and vitamin D. And those things I just mentioned, those all relate to inflammation. There's 15 specific inflammatory genes, but there's other genes that also provoke inflammation, like the free radical genes and how I use vitamin D. And those are accounted for in this in the way that we know what the most important lifestyle changes for people to do in order to address things like inflammation is that these numbers on the far right hand column represent the number of genes that are beneficially helped by this recommendation here in the second column. So if someone has, so for example, high omega 3s, this helps 10 red and yellow dots in their genes. I happen to know that all 10 of those relate to the inflammatory genes. So remember, she had 11 out of 15 genes that were red or yellow dots. 10 of those red or yellow dots are beneficially affected just by higher dose fish oil.
Okay, just
So
so I'm understanding. So in this green highest priority, these are what I should be doing to help decrease the inflammation. These things in the green. And then second, most important are in the yellow, et cetera.
correct. And that's in decreasing order. It's in diminishing returns. So the you have 40 super important genes. 15 of them are the top 15 of those 40 are inflammation. And then you got another three that are for free radicals, and another eight or so for liver detox, another 12 for methylation or so. And then of those 40, 27 in this person's particular example, this is a sample report. 27 of those 40 are red and yellow dots. So of the most important 40 genes, 27 are red and yellow. That's not great. That's actually pretty high. And
Okay.
so what I've done is that of those 27 red and yellow dots, 14 of those 27, meaning over half of the most important genes to work with, are benefited by this person avoiding smoking and pollution. Now, that may sound obvious to us, but that's not obvious to everybody.
Okay,
So
so what does
people
that
are
next one mean? Sulforaphane and food or
so
supplements? Because
sulforaphane is a supplement sulforaphane can be a supplement or found in broccoli green sprouts. So it's a compound that is incredibly potent to help with people deal with inflammation, help use vitamin D, which one of the major roles of vitamin D is to drop inflammation, and also to help with liver detox. So sulforaphane is usually one of the top recommendations for most people simply because it helps so many of the most important genes. So sulforaphane is available in broccoli sprouts, fresh broccoli sprouts, um, or it's available as a supplement. And depending on the brand, it's called different things. Like for Designs for Health, it's called Brocco Protect. For other companies, they have other things like Sulfo this or Brocco that or whatever.
Okay.
Um, and if people are having issues ordering Brocco Protect, sometimes they run out because it's so popular. You can just email Crystal, and she can connect you with a different source of sulforaphane through a different ordering medium.
Okay.
SOD inducers are, stands for, we're getting pretty granular. It's called superoxide dismutase, but it's another gene it's another, SOD is what I call the 16th most important inflammatory gene. That's the head janitor. Crystal, if you can scroll up to the head janitor, it's probably around 53, 54. Go back down. Sorry, 60, sorry, 62, 60s, not 50s. So, um, basically, 95% of the free radicals are generated in the mitochondria, 95%. And when you burn, mitochondria makes energy, and it's like burning wood in a fire pit. And when you burn wood in a fire pit to make heat and light, like you're making energy, sparks fly off. And those sparks are free radicals. And if you've ever been around a campfire and those sparks fly too far or they're too hot, they could catch other things on fire, and that's really, really bad. Like the tent, the structure, everything, their shirt, clothing, whatever, people's skin. Uh, so 95% of all the sparks are made in this mitochondria. And if you don't have a good janitor running around to put out the sparks, the factory is going to catch on fire and cause massive inflammation and destroy things. So Mr. Sod or MN Sod, he is the head janitor. And if he's a red or yellow dot, then you have a much harder time putting out all the sparks. Therefore, you're a much higher risk of inflammation. So, what's called an SOD inducer is a nutrient that speeds up and helps out Mr. Sod work more efficiently to catch all the sparks so the factory doesn't catch on fire. And I know, and the reason why there's this type of uh, jargon, why it's not labeled like just for people that have gotten the genetics through me, I put at the end of the report the name of the products. But when this goes out to other health coaches and practitioners and doctors for their clients and patients, I don't ask them to use the product companies that I use. So they just know what the nutrient class is, and then I can help them, or they know themselves what products they want to recommend that helps, in this case, SOD. So uh, when we scroll up to the top, Crystal, to the page 6, where it has the summary. So when people are thinking like what to do to deal with inflammation and inflammatory water weight, this slide is your friend. This is the summary slide. The vast majority of the rest of the report is just a lot more detail, but this is the slide that people should be focusing on. So, for example, if someone has a yellow dot for food allergens under the food trigger section, they are they would do a better on an elimination diet. Now, people who are more risk for food allergens, that causes, if they eat the food allergens, then they have more inflammation in their gut, and that creates the water weight. So one mechanism of inflammatory water weight is having a high allergen based diet. So going on an elimination diet could lower inflammatory water weight by reducing the uh, allergen load on your body, so your gut's less inflamed and therefore not retaining so much water. The low histamine diet, which is the second dot, Crystal, if you can highlight that, the second dot on the upper left. Histamine is part of the inflammatory pathway. Histamine is your body's flood switch. If you get stung by a bee, the bee didn't inject a half quart of water into your arm. What happened was that's venom that was injected into your body, and the body has to quickly flood the area with water to dilute the venom so the venom doesn't destroy and erode and corrode muscle, bone. I mean, some snake venom can corrode bone. That's pretty intense and rare, but thankfully. But this bee venom can harm vessels, nerve, muscle. So you flood the area with water. Histamine is the flood switch. So if people are overproducers of histamine, they can have a much more hyperreactive response to any type of histamine-based foods. Therefore, they'll swell with water. It's like you eat a high histamine food. It's like eat the equivalent of eating a slow-moving full body bee sting, that then your whole body starts to swell from the histamines. So uh, uh, Crystal and I put together a low histamine elimination diet that's really straightforward for people because it's going on an antihistamine diet can be very challenging because some quote health foods are high in histamine, like avocados. And there's a strategy to go on a low histamine diet while still maintaining quality of life. Basically, you pick the top, there's a long list of foods that are high in histamine. And you pick your top 10 favorites or so, and you keep eating those and you eliminate the rest because dosage matters. If you reduce the amount of histamine-based foods and the volume of a specific food down, you lower your histamine burden, and therefore you lower the inflammatory response. And then there's people who eat caffeine, who are sensitive to caffeine. How is caffeine related to inflammatory water weight? And also toxic hormonal weight, which is the second class of it, of weight gain, and also fat calorie weight. If people are sensitive to caffeine, they can get, and they have caffeine or chocolate in sufficient quantities, they have what's called caffeine-induced anxiety and depression. Now, everyone here, and my hand is raised up also, has probably either had the experience or seen the experience of someone eating not good things when they're anxious or depressed. My hand's up super high on that one. So, uh, and so you would eat that half muffin, and you create the muffin test as a consequence from feeling anxious from having caffeine. So, you can develop, and caffeine also is high in histamine. Sorry, coffee and tea are high in histamine, which would then have the caffeine. So you see how there's multiple ways that people can have inflammatory water weight, even though you're not necessarily eating calories. You can have just straight coffee and tea, and you can retain water weight from the histamines in the coffee or tea.
And
Then there's,
sorry,
sorry,
Dr. Shay.
question? Yeah.
Um, can you distinguish between tea, like caffeinated tea versus, say, a nettles herbal tea, which actually reduces?
Oh, sure. So if you would fast travel, you just scroll up to the table of contents. Sorry, fast travel is a video game term. I'm revealing my 25-year video game addiction history here. I wish I've been over. I feel very compelled and to say that because I've and you click on the understand your trigger foods. Okay, so scroll down to the caffeine. You'll see the chart. Keep going. Keep going to the main page of it. Two more. There we go. So this is a page. So this person is a yellow dot in caffeine, and you'll notice the chart on the right is in a descending order of highest caffeine load to lowest caffeine load based on the food. So what's not listed on here are herbal teas because they don't have caffeine. The ones that have caffeine are coffee, espresso, black tea, energy drinks, oolong, green tea, white tea, soft drinks, and chocolates. Even decaf coffee has a very small amount of caffeine. It can be anywhere from 1% to 10% the amount of caffeine, depending on what type of coffee you're comparing it to. So, uh, there are certain foods like what Crystal mentioned, nettle tea, and oh, what's the other one that drops histamine? Uh, did I list it? Probably dandelion tea does it too. I'm not quite sure, but nettle tea can reduce histamine. Um, Crystal, did that answer your question
It
or what
did.
you were
Yeah,
referring to?
maybe
Okay.
ginger would be on that list too to
Okay.
reduce inflammation.
So it may be through a different mechanism than histamines, but yeah, ginger would reduce inflammation. So if we scroll back up to slide 6.
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know you can do that. You could just type the number in the bottom. Wow. Okay. I've been using this for how long and I didn't know that. All right, great. Alcohol. So alcohol can create alcohol affects weight all three ways. Alcohol has tons of calories. Alcohol is this weird, a gram of sugar or protein has 4 calories per gram. A gram of fat has 9 calories per gram. Alcohol is this weird hybrid. It's 7 calories per gram. So you can drink your calories with alcohol and put on tons of weight. I lived in New Zealand for 8 years. The national sport, uh, the national sport is rugby. The second most popular national sport is alcoholism. So I saw a lot of alcoholic weight when I was over there. Now, alcohol puts on weight from the calories. It also puts on weight from the inflammatory weight because alcohol screws up the liver, and one of your liver's primary jobs is to get rid of the inflammation. And if it's damaged from alcohol or preoccupied with detoxing alcohol, it can't do that well. Alcohol is also a lot of alcoholic drinks have histamine in them, just straight up histamine. And I think it also, I'd have to check the chart, but I think it also blocks the
It
enzyme
does.
that helps you break down histamine. So not only
Yeah.
adds histamine, it stops you from breaking it down. So
Yes.
that's adding water weight through the histamine pathway. Additionally, many alcohols have gluten in them, depending on what's in it. I'll give you, and then alcohols also have other toxins in them that add to the toxic weight. And then you've got the alcohol screwing up the liver, which means you can't detox other toxins. And so now the body will have to shunt toxins into fat cells to sequester them like they're shoving them into a dirty closet. Like we all have or have had in our past a dirty closet. We just shove all the things we don't want to deal with, and someday we'll get to it. The body's the same way with toxins. The fat cells are the dirty closets of the body. So alcohol carries toxins in. It it screws up the detox pathways, and it also uh, can can create uh, uh, create a circumstance where your body starts to store more toxic fat. And this is different from caloric fat. So uh, caloric fat is where you have calories in your fat cells. Toxic fat is where you have toxins in your fat cells. Does everyone understand those differences? Any questions on that?
Again, how do I know if I have toxic cells or fat cells?
So, one is by process of elimination. If you've got the inflammatory weight yo-yo, then you're looking at more. It's inflammatory. People can have a combination. If people have toxic fat, um, you're looking for other signs of toxic sensitivity and toxicity. One is that people can they go on diets. They can even go on anti-inflammatory diets and caloric restricting diets, and they're trying to deal with the other types of weight loss, but they hit this plateau where they just can't get rid of this layer of fat, this layer of weight. And if you're dealing with the calories and you're dealing with the inflammation, but you're still struggling with excess weight, then usually that's toxic weight, where you've got people that it just takes longer to get rid of toxic weight because you got to pull it out of the fat cells and then put it through the liver and all the rest of it. Um, Other signs are that people are sensitive to smells. And people who are sensitive to smells usually have a liver that is really stressed out in the sense that whatever you breathe in and goes into your lungs, and then goes into the portal vein and goes into the liver for to be cleared up because we breathe in toxins, whether it's from exhaust or off gassing, whatever. Your liver has to detox what you breathe in before it's circulated into the rest of the body. So if you're sensitive to smells and get headaches or fatigue or cranky when you are around toxic smells, um, that is a very strong indication that your liver is overwhelmed and can't deal with that toxic load because the being sensitive to toxic smells is a safety mechanism to inform you to get out of that area with the toxic air. And it's a mechanism, a very unpleasant one, to tell you that your liver can't handle what's going on right now. This is what we call multiple chemical sensitivity. This is where people who are in a toxic environment and then they get super fatigued. And toxic fatigue is where you are exposed to a toxin and then you feel super tired very quickly, and it takes you days or weeks, sometimes months, to come back up slowly, slowly back up to the baseline of your energy levels because your liver is taking so much time to detox whatever you got exposed to. Um, Other signs of toxic weight is that this is a real bad one. This happened to a colleague of mine in chiropractic school. He was a pilot for a couple decades before he went to chiropractic school. He then got a really, really bad flu and lost a ton of weight very quickly. And he lost all of his short-term and long-term memory. He couldn't even remember his own phone number or his address. And what happened was that all of the toxic fumes and jet fuel and all the crazy toxins people are exposed to in the airlines that were stored in his fat for all those years suddenly got released all at once, and his liver couldn't detox them fast enough. So those toxins are fat soluble, and so they redeposit themselves in the fattiest area of the body, which was his brain. And he had this horrible. He almost had to quit school, and he recovered, but he almost had to drop out because he couldn't remember anything. Um, that's a very stark sign of toxic weight, that when if you have a separate circumstance where you drop a lot, it's like someone going into your house and just opening all the dirty closets all at once with no warning and everything just spills out. That's a very stark example, but it's real, and it happened to my friend. Um, any other questions so far? Okay. So alcohol, you can probably tell I'm not a fan. Alcohol increases inflammatory weight, toxic weight, and caloric weight. Another type of inflammatory water weight keyword may, be salt. So I have a red dot in salt. I have perfect blood pressure and I eat tons of salt. This does Just because someone has a red dot in the blood pressure gene doesn't mean that salt is automatically bad. If you have um, if you have existing high, like meaningful high blood pressure, or you have water retention, then uh, you might want to consider going to a lower salt or a potassium chloride version of salt as opposed to sodium chloride. So, Crystal, would you go back up to the trigger food table of contents and click on it and go to the salt main page? I think it's the next one. Yeah, this one. Okay, so this is one of the most word-heavy slides in the whole report. It's because blood pressure is very emotionally intense for a lot of people. So, I just want to cover this real quick. The box on the far right, Crystal, if you'd highlight that for me, please. The box on the far right, factors affecting blood pressure. I aside from salt, there are, and we can just count them off. Chronic stress, the things that affect blood pressure aside from salt include, but not limited to, chronic stress, excess weight, smoking, alcohol consumption, low potassium, sleep apnea, thyroid issues, adrenal issues, shorter height, kidney issues, lack of exercise. That's 11 factors I've listed. And there's several others as well that I didn't bother to list because those are the main ones that most people can understand. So, is salt the enemy? Almost always no. If someone is struggling with higher blood pressure and you need to just remove all the variables you can, then sure. Or if you've dealt with already these other factors meaningfully and you're still high blood pressure, then sure. But there's other things that affect blood pressure aside from salt, and there's also I have a paragraph on how to properly monitor blood pressure and how to get data. It's very silly to walk into a medical office with bright fluorescent lights and you're feeling nervous and there's someone with a white coat that's very intimidating. Of course, your blood pressure is going to be higher than normal. So the thing to do is you collect data multiple times a week for at least a month. So you walk in with your chart of data and not have your blood pressure be biased by a stressful visit to a doctor's office. Um, so some people, instead of having a red dot in salt causing high blood pressure, that can cause water retention. This happened with my former intern. She was struggling with weight around her belly, but also her fingers were swelling. And she's an athlete. She eats really clean. She does functional medicine. And it turned out that she had variations in histamine and salt and some attending gut issues. And when she dropped the histamine in her food, dropped the salt, and resolved the gut issues, her fingers are no longer swollen, and her gut flattened out. And she didn't know about the salt and histamine side of it until she ran her genetics. So a lot of people may have water retention from salt. And some people just know this because when they have higher salt foods, you can get tons of salt from processed foods, they put on weight. They may think it's calories, but it's not. It's that watery layer of weight that is put on. It's a different. It's like this watery texture. So salt is another way that people can retain water weight. Because if you can go back to page 6, please. Okay. The other thing, I'll just skip down to no gluten. So gluten, people can put on inflammatory weight from gluten because gluten is inherently inflammatory. It damages the gut. It can create also a big inflammatory response. Um, but the other main problems with gluten-based grains is that most of the gluten-based grains are heavily genetically modified and come with attending amounts of spray that are very inflammatory and toxic. So uh, it's not just the gluten grains, it's the attending toxins that were used to gray unconventional gluten grains. Going back up to mindful eating, some people, this is where the calorie fat weight comes in. Some people just overeat genetically. They just overeat because their genes are they're the feeling full is in the brain, not the stomach. So when you feel full, uh, it's a signal that's sent from the stomach that's genetically mediated and through some other receptors in the brain that inform you that you're full enough. And some people have a gene clusters that inform them that there's a delay or a misread. And so they don't feel full on more normal amounts of food when they should. And so then they can have a tendency to overeat, and that's more of the caloric weight gain. Other ways that people can put on inflammatory weight are mentioned. We already touched on it. We talked about exercise-induced obesity, but you can see the exercise summary in the bottom left corner. The third dot in that says exercise-induced inflammation and muscle injury, that's looking at the four of the most important inflammatory genes in the whole body. And if people have a tendency towards a yellow or a red dot when averaging those four genes, that means they're much more prone to over exercise causing inflammation and therefore water weight gain, like we discussed with the CrossFit folks. The other things that can create inflammatory weight is if people have a yellow red dot in collagen components, which is the second dot in there on the exercise. That means that people are more prone to injury because their collagen is not as strong. And so if people exercise in the wrong way or they over-exercise, they're more prone to injury, which then creates its own inflammation, which then can cause the inflammatory weight. So,
Dr. Sam, for the
yes,
exercise-induced inflammation, if somebody has a yellow or a red dot, what type of exercise would you recommend for them?
I would not have them. That's you can actually scroll to that. So scroll a couple slides forward. Keep scrolling. Next one. So on the right-hand side, it's the practical application. So it says like 2 to 3 times a week of safe high-intensity interval training, not every day like the CrossFit people are. Uh, Focus on movement and varying your exercising and train safely. And with all exercise, it's always best to work with the direct supervision of a healthcare professional or a fitness coach to customize it to your needs. And if you are a red or yellow dot, then it's really, really important to be mindful of not over exercising and to make the distinction between exercise and movement. That people can still look. The way that I have to negotiate with CrossFit types is that they love the community and they love the regularity and the discipline of their like 1 hour of exercise. And I'm like, okay, but just make the distinction between exercise and movement. You can go to your gym and do Kayla, did you raise is your hand raised? I'm just seeing that now. Um,
I just raised it. I'll ask
okay,
after you're done.
sure. Um, the um, that instead of going to CrossFit and trying to aim for all their personal bests, they focus on movement practices as opposed to sprint or high intensity exercises. So like walking, qigong, biking, tai chi, whatever it might be, like yoga. So I distinguish those from heavy exercise. I call it movement. Then more importantly, if you go to the next slide, Crystal, the people that are prone to exercise-induced inflammation and muscle injury, therefore inflammatory weight gain, or the collagen red dots or yellow dots, and then more prone to injury, they should not. It's like, I mean, Chris, you asked me what exercise should they do? My answer really is it's what is they should be focusing on recovery more than exercise. So the emphasis isn't what's the exercise to do, it's what is the recovery I need to really prioritize after exercise. And that's the part that a lot of people miss is how to properly recover. So these are things like warming up, specific nutrients to deal with inflammation. Swimming is great for anti-inflammatory because the cool water keeps the inflammation down, and avoiding overtraining and also access to like saunas or cold plunges if you have access to them. Those are really great. Kayla, what was your question?
I was just going to ask about collagen because I have this red and yellow dot.
Hmm.
And I find it, and I was wondering if there's also something to do with like the way your body, I don't know if synthesizes is the right word or like uses collagen that you're consuming. Like I'd say, not even just the collagen supplement, but I've tried to have a really high collagen diet from, healthy fats and meats and stock. And I still have like so much joint like crunchiness, I'd say, like in my joints and tendons,
Hmm.
and also like the ability to kind of get tweaked and injured easily, even if I'm not doing intense exercise. So I was wondering, like, with that red dot, is like, does my body kind of also just not know what to do with the collagen I'm consuming? Because it seems like for the amount that I consume, I'm like, why is my body so, cracky and achy and things like that?
Right. So there can be a number for anyone that has red dots in collagen, and that might be experiencing ongoing joint concerns. There may be another multiple factors that might be going on. One is that collagen also needs like vitamin C to help
Mhm.
synthesize properly. So, and there's I believe also creatine supports uh, with kind of collagen metabolism. And there also may be other things that might be affecting the joints and inflammation. So, for example, there might be like, and I don't know if you have this or not. It's not my place on this call to go into an extended discussion with you about your particular
Mhm.
situation with it. But other things that could cause multiple joint crackiness and creakiness is autoimmunity that the body is attacking the joints.
Mhm.
There's also just inflammation as a whole is still high. Like when I ran my genetics test back in 2016, I had painful, creaky, cracky joints across my fingers in both hands, and I was in my 30s. I mean, I had pain and joint creakiness like an 80-year-old man. And what I saw was in my genetics is that I was a hyperinflamer.
Mhm.
And so just being overinflamed as such I mean, back then it didn't even have we didn't even have the exercise profile, so I didn't even know about the collagen or the exercise injury stuff. The exercise report came out, I think, 1 to 2 years ago. And this was back in 2016 where I was having the joint pain.
Mhm.
And what I did was based off that chart we showed in the very beginning, like what are the top things to do
Yeah.
based on the aggregate of the 40 most important genes. And what I did, because I was a massive overinflamer, is I did that, and uh, my joint pain went away within a couple months simply because I had reduced the global inflammation in my whole body. Um, there's uh, yeah, so there can be autoimmunity, there can be some missing components help synthesize with collagen, like we'll just say vitamin C, just because it is one of the major components. It
Mhm.
can be just overinflamed overall at the moment. Just that's kind of that's happening anyway. That it's kind of a more global issue. Um, and those are the three big ones that I can think of at the moment. Um, and we can set up, Kayla, you and I can set up a separate call if you want to dialogue about this further,
Thanks.
about your particular
Yeah, I was more just
situation.
curious. Yeah, it was interesting to see that and kind of just with everything else I saw in my report, it was interesting to kind of like look at the whole web,
Mhm.
as you're saying, of what could be going on with that. So thank you.
Yeah. Um, what other questions? We got 5 minutes left. What other questions do people have? Okay. Crystal, are there any other slides that um you want me to cover?
No, I think you pretty much covered it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just double check any of my other notes on my.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So if I just want to review my supplements and where I'm at, um, and just have like a quick check-in to make sure I'm tr on track from what I have already implemented, what
Mhm.
should I do?
So, Chris, if you throw up the sample report real quick. So if you go, yeah, so these are on page 6, it shows the top 5 genetic-based supplements. And uh it at the very end of the now if you go down to page, oh, thank you, you're right on it. You're amazing. Okay, so page 94 is the version of this that shows the company that I use, Designs for Health. These are the products that are correlated to the top 5. Bronco Protect, I believe, is out of stock currently
Yes,
at the
it
moment.
is.
So Crystal can help help you get an alternate source through a full script, and then uh, this is what you can get from Designs for Health, and there's a disc because you're a part of this program, you get 15% off Designs for Health. And we have those order links available to you, I believe in the portal and also in a series of emails.
Yes, and
And
also I offer a complimentary supplement review call.
mhm,
So if anyone has specific questions about the current supplements they're taking, the dosages, how often to take them, you can schedule that call with me and we can go over it together.
Great. Thank you.
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Crystal. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, if you found value in the genetics testing, please feel free to refer people to my website, the DNAdecoded.com or drsamshay.com/DNA-decoded. And they can learn more about this program there, and uh, hopefully we'll be able to see them on future calls. And Crystal, what's the date for the next one?
The date for the next call is, check. It's the second Wednesday of every month, which is February 11th.
Excellent. Okay. All right. I look
Thanks so
forward.
much. Very helpful.
You're very welcome, and
Wonderful. Thanks all for being here.
thank you
This
all.
was wonderful. Thank you.
You're
Have a great
welcome.
day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.